Hello, this is Margery Theroux. I'm the gallery director at the Mikhail Zakin Gallery in Demorest, New Jersey. And we're here today with Jenny Campbell. And I put her work on the website last week. You can see some of her abstract paintings. And so we're going to talk to her today and see what she has to say. Hi, Jenny.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And just to let people know, I've known Jenny for many years, many years,
Many, many years.
many years. And you are originally from New York, from Brooklyn, and you said Bensonhurst. You're from Bensonhurst.
I'm from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, good old mafia neighborhood. They've left.
Yes, yes. And you moved up to Maine, where you currently are, a number of years ago. You had because you had little kids, right?
Yeah,
Sons.
moved up in 1994 to the Portland, Maine area, Cape Elizabeth. We moved up with our 3 red-haired boys who would have gotten slaughtered in my old neighborhood.
Yeah, yeah. And you started out actually as a photographer.
Yes, I've been taking photographs, a lot of fine art photographs, went to a lot of civil rights demonstrations and Vietnam War demonstrations with my camera, and captured a lot of that kind of things on a really old Bellows cameras that I found from my father.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I did that, and then coming up here, I did some commercial photography. I always have a camera in my hand, no matter what, even now.
Yeah, yeah. So when did you start painting?
I started painting, I would say, around 1978, believe it or not, just like fooling around, no formal training or anything. And then I went to the studio school around 82, I got in there. I worked in Midtown Manhattan, and I was an in-house art director I did all their advertising for a real estate investment trust. And then when that company was hit by the mid-70s recession, they axed me, and it freed me up to go to the New York studio school, where I actually got some real formal training. And I really enjoyed, I went there to study with George McNeil, and I made it by hook or crook into that class. And he's been like a very big influence, and my biggest influences were the New York school. I love Rembrandt. He's still my favorite classical artist. I just love Rembrandt. But I think all that kind of training, feeds what I have formally. And I think my life feeds what I have in the present work.
What you do currently. So
Yeah.
you live up in Maine, and you have chickens and ducks and bees, and you also make hot sauce that you sell.
Oh yes, we grow peppers, and I try to make the hottest sauce. And I also make a sauce which is a Puerto Rican sauce called sofrito. It's a bean sauce which is used to flavor like all kinds of food, and that's not as hot. It's just like a lot of crushed vegetables. I haven't been doing much of anything right now.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So so why don't you tell us about the materials you use? I know you use oil paint, but you also combine materials. I've seen some of your paintings that have pieces of cardboard things in them. You had, when I visited your studio, at one point you were showing me that you saved game pieces from games from your kids with the circles that you popped out.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about like combining materials, or how you gather materials to use?
Well, when I first started painting, like when I was in the studio school, I think a classical oil painting was what I did. Actually, I started with acrylic paint, and but I used to use acrylic like oil, and all of my criticisms used to be, your pieces look like oil paint instead of acrylic paintings. Maybe you should use oil. So then I was doing a lot of oil paintings, and all of my older work is all like that. Then I stopped painting for a while to come up here and raise my children, and I've started up again.
Mm-hmm.
And since I started up, it's like been regenerating, It's like I don't have to use traditional materials if I'm really excited about finding, what's around my house, what I have on hand, and what the painting seems to want to need.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gotten this workflow going that I don't think about it, like George says, I just let it hover. But what I do is when I'm working, and depending on how fast I have to work, because I work very quickly,
Mm-hmm.
I'll use something like maybe acrylic or enamel that will dry faster. And sometimes when, I'll do something that's a slower painting, I'll use oil. And just as long as you follow certain principles,
Mm-hmm.
like fat over lean,
Yes, yes, yes.
you put oil paint under something that's going to dry because it'll crack. But maybe you want to crack it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know, because you could do anything. I like the pieces with the holes because I use spray paint with that. Because sometimes I want to get a hole,
Yeah.
Sometimes I want to do something, and I'm going to show you something. Sometimes I want to do something like this piece.
Mm-hmm.
And while this is practically all oil on linen, maybe I want to do something like that.
Yeah.
It's over here where I can do like some textures.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe something like this where I could just drip the painting,
Yeah.
and it's not going to stay wet for 5 days.
Mm-hmm. Right. And
So,
what I noticed in looking at your paintings, there's a lot of circular imagery, even if it might not be tightly circular, but there's a lot of organic kind of shapes that evolve. They look like they evolve as the painting evolves. So it's not like you're making circles and painting them in, but they sort of seem to evolve organically, and there's a sphere, roundness to a lot of the imagery.
yeah, I don't know how those wind up, but I know they lately have been winding up in the work.
Right,
And
right.
so it's like, sometimes I'll do something and maybe it'll be more linear.
Mm-hmm.
And, but if I look at it deep enough, like let's say like this piece, see this piece over here?
Yeah.
It looks more linear, but if you look deep enough, I think it's happening.
Yeah.
Why? Look, I even have it in the weaving.
Oh, yes, yes, you do weave. You move your phone down a little bit so we can see the weaving better. Yes, you also do weaving,
Yeah.
which is a very different exercise than what you're talking about your paintings.
Oh, that is such a controlled thing, the weaving.
Yeah.
You gotta be patient over there with the, I'm just adjusting this phone on the paint can.
Right, right. But so you have these two different ways of working. One's the weaving, which is very focused and
Tedious.
and labor intensive. Painting is labor intensive too, but you have more freedom. And I know we talked earlier, and you said that you felt your lifestyle that you have there in Maine now sort of feeds into the work that you're doing
Yeah,
right now.
I do believe that, like I remember they always used to say art imitates life. And then you get, people that, I don't know if it's imitating life now or whatever, but, their art has nothing to do with their life. But I can say, while I'm not thinking about what's going on, things do tend to creep into the work, whether it be materials or whatever I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
I cook a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
I used to study at Hunter College at Ron Gorchov.
Mm-hmm.
Never saw the work, but he always used to say that painting and cooking are the same. He putter around the kitchen, you make something, you make coffee, you drink it. You
Yeah.
go painting, you know, you put down some strokes, you sit down, you make coffee, you look at it. So
Right,
he
right.
was so funny.
That is funny.
Yeah.
So do you incorporate some of the materials from your surroundings into your paintings?
Yes, I do. I have some dried sticks from like plants. I have roots. I have I have bark from trees. I have like some packaging from some things I got mailed to me, which is, I haven't used this yet, but it's really kind of cool.
It's tempting.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
And,
Great.
and also, you know, not only like things that are tangible, you know, Doug's a musician and there's always music in our house.
Hmm.
And we're really into you know, the Scottish and Italian cultures, you know, and all of that, I think, also feeds into it, like the fun, liveliness, and, you know, even the hardships and the despair, it works into there.
Right, 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 right. And Douglas is your husband, just to
Yes, he is. And,
yeah,
a painter, a graphic designer as well, even though that's the job he doesn't like at all.
right, right, right. That's a
Pays the
job he
bills.
has to do. Yeah. But he's a painter also and went to the studio school with you.
Oh yeah, he's a
Same
painter
time.
and illustrator, and man,
Mm.
better than me.
Yeah,
More
well,
prolific than him, but he's better than me.
we're all different from each other. It's not better, right?
Yes, yes, sure.
Right, right. And you're also a member up in Portland with a group that's called Seven, the Seven
Yep.
Group or something.
There are seven there are seven painters. Six of us are women and one's a man. And we met at the Maine College of Art continuing studies class. You know, I just took an abstraction class with young kids who didn't have really the history that I had. So I actually wound up, you know, some of the first people, you know, talking about like the older New York school people and,
Mhm.
you know, the Renaissance people. It's amazing how much they don't know, you know.
I know.
But anyway, I went there to see if I still liked painting. I had only been doing photography. My kids were all in high school, so I didn't have to like be around. I had stopped painting for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So I went there and started throwing some paint around. I still had a lot of tubes of oil paint. I had so much, and I got to put it all up there, and I
Yeah.
realized, oh, I still like doing this.
Yeah. 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 And oil paint lasts forever, which is great. You can have it.
It does. It
Yeah.
lasts forever. It's not like acrylic. If there's a hole in the tube, the whole thing is, you know, petrified.
Yes. 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 So you've started back painting again. Is there much of an art scene up in Portland?
The reason why we moved up to Portland is there's an amazing art scene. There's
Hmm.
an amazing music scene, and
Hmm.
there's an amazing food scene. And people are so into natural food, and everything is local, and it's great.
Mm,
That it's really it's kind of like a microcosm of what New York wasn't even then when we moved.
you're right. Right.
You know, I mean, New York was, now it's like, you know, a zillion painters and
Yeah.
any art you think of, any kind of food, any kind of activity. There's a lot of it there, but
Hmm.
that like that. It was just a bunch of neighborhoods, and maybe
Right.
Manhattan or maybe Park Slope. You got a little more of that.
Right.
90s,
Yeah.
but now it's different. I should have kept that house. It would have been worth.
I know. Would have been worth billions at this point.
Oh God, I
Yeah.
checked on the real estate things. It's like worth now $2 million now. It's just a crappy little one-family house.
Yeah. Yeah.
And which is an hour and a half at least from Manhattan.
Right.
It stops from the end of the line. I mean, you could ride your bike to Coney Island, which was the saving grace. I was more at the beach than I was in Manhattan looking at art.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, no, it's a great scene. We're very lucky here. And for musicians too. It's, you know,
Yeah.
and Zoom, you could even, people are doing music on Zoom,
mhm.
and, you know,
Yeah. How are you affected very much by the quarantining of everyone, the isolating of everyone because of the corona?
other than getting food and not being able to, like, walk wherever I want to go or shop, I'm pretty much a hermit anyway. I
Yeah.
mean, I do what I've always been doing. I stay in the house, I putter, you
Mhm.
know, garden, paint,
Mhm.
take care of the bees and the birds, and I have a dog and a cat.
Yeah.
So, believe it or not, a little bit here and a little bit there takes up your day.
Yeah, it does.
It does.
Yeah.
Then at night, me and Doug play music. I mean, he's excellent and I suck, but I'm into minimalist music now. It's like, I'm like, just give me one chord. I just want to phone.
Why not?
But no, I mean, other than not being able to see my family as much as we like, because we are a very close family,
Mhm.
um, my studio practice is pretty much the same, and if not more so.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about, or
Well,
you want to show us some of your work? You want to walk around and
sure, I'll show you some of the work, and some of it you have on your site.
uh-huh.
And I got to say, one of the things that I really enjoy, which I never used to do that much previously,
Mhm.
before I started painting up again, was working on paper.
Mhm.
Actually, I did. I used to do monoprints, a lot of them with oil paint on paper. I
Mhm.
didn't prime them, so they're like dissolved.
All right.
But here are some of the pieces. This over here is a piece that originated out of some old monoprints that I had that were not oil paint.
Mhm. Can you
And
turn the
so,
camera to the left a little bit?
like
Yeah.
that.
And down so we can see it. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So this over here was several pieces that were collaged, and
Mhm.
then I hated the collage, and then I just painted all over it.
Hmm. Okay.
So it's got so much paper on it that I think it could stand up by itself.
Right. Right. It's heavy.
So and I'll be probably, you know, if I have to put that in a show, then that'll be the challenge. But either I'll hang it by itself with those things. What
Uh,
were those?
those commando strips that I was telling you about? Is that what?
Yeah, the commando strips. Or I may want to just do it so, like on a panel board or on canvas, you know,
Right. Right.
touch it. And then I have, let me see, the more erratic ones over there. I don't know if you can see them. This
Yes.
happened during the pandemic. So, like I said, something hovered and creeped into that. I
Yeah.
may want to paint some of that stuff out because now that I look at it, it's not my favorite.
Right. Well, yeah, they all get worked over, you know.
Yeah, they do. These over here I'm working on now, these are oil on linen, which were once paintings, and I took all the paint off of them,
Mhm.
hoping to salvage the paint and stick them on something
Right.
else, but it flaked off.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. Well, you got to watch it with that pre-primed linen of like circa 1980s.
Yeah.
The adhesion is awful.
Mm. Yeah.
It's very bad.
Yeah.
So, and I had it's lead prime on it
Oh,
that
really?
sticks to it.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I just put I just painted into it and it seems to be doing better than what I had on it. Maybe I was using too much Damar 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything will crack off of that.
Yeah.
And then here are some really tiny pieces. I was recently invited to be in a small painting show called the Nano,
Mhm.
uh, curated by Laura Dunn. And it was really kind of challenging because I never paint that tiny.
Right.
And it's these three smaller ones. The top one I did after.
What,
Uh,
how small are the small ones? What size are those?
they're the largest pieces could be for this show was 4 inches square.
Wow.
Yeah, and there are people doing 1 inch. I don't know. You need a hair, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tiny.
And then I have like some of these really large ones on canvas that
Mm-hmm.
still have to be stretched
Mm-hmm.
that I've been working on.
Mm-hmm.
There's one that is on your side. I write the size of them like on the sides.
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's hard to remember.
I started doing some writing in some of them. I do steno, believe it or not. I used to be a secretary.
Oh, right. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, so I could have my own. I could have my own secret
Secret.
message
Yes,
here.
exactly.
No
Because
one will know what it is.
probably, I wonder if people really even learn that anymore.
I don't think they do. I used to do steno and dictaphone was in when I worked in New York right before I went to the studio school, and I was self-taught with that because I noticed people were getting paid top dollar, and even though I had it in high school, it was Pitman shorthand, which is an English type with the dark and the lighter strokes, and
Mm-hmm.
here's Greg, so nobody could read my work, my dictation,
Right.
even if I got something wrong, I couldn't ask anybody. But I had a boss who really liked me, and I said, I want to get my steno speed up, and he's like, okay, I'll give you some dictation. I'm like, don't talk too fast. So for a while, and then after a while, I started doing legal documents in steno. I could fill up a whole book, and you know what I could never read?
What?
If I didn't know an outline for a word and I wrote it in just regular longhand,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what I wrote.
That's
I
crazy.
could always read the outline if I knew it,
Right.
like a language. But
Yeah, that's
so I
interesting.
have a blank. I'd say, I wrote that one out in longhand. I have no idea what that word is.
That's interesting. But that's really cool to be able to draw on that to add to your paintings. To, as you say, add secret messages into your paintings.
Yeah.
Like,
Sometimes people doing words in work, unless the word is like really meaningful, like Jenny Holzer, she does everything is based on words. And I
mhm.
think they're very carefully, they're not arbitrary.
Right. No, of course not.
About that's the piece.
Right.
But put stuff in there and it'll be like big and in the center. And I'm like, why the hell is that there? It really distracts from it. And I like the idea with having a secret message because nobody knows what it is, and
Right.
it's almost like
It's
you know,
it's like a drawn line, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like online.
So that's very cool. All right. So, well, thank you for speaking to us today, Jenny. This was very enlightening, and
And
I'm
thank you for having me. Usually I don't get to talk about this stuff with anybody.
sure. Well,
Well, the group, the
yeah,
7 group,
your seven
uh,
group.
yes.
But
Oh,
huh? What were you
I
saying?
was going to say with the 7 group, the 7 collective, we meet now on Zoom once a month and have like, critiques of work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. It's important to have critiques and discussions, I think, with artists because, we all work in a very isolated way anyway. So it's nice
Right.
to have discussions every once in a while to talk about work.
Well, painting in a weird way, visual artists are more hiders,
Mm,
work in isolation, and it's so different from being a musician where you're like out there all the time.
right.
We do our own thing, and nobody gets to see it until we're ready to have people see it. And some people, they don't never ever want to show the work until
Right.
they're dead.
Yes, there are those
The
people.
solitary practice.
Yes, it is very
Somebody's got to do it.
right, right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Jenny. And for everyone, I hope you go and look at her wonderful paintings that are on the site, the Facebook page of Mikhail Zakin Gallery. Okay. All right.
Nice, Margery. Have a great day.
Okay. You too. You too, Jenny.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.